Welcome, Reverend Sidney Bennett. Thank you very much for coming to our channel. I hear you want to share your story.
Hi, everybody. I have a great story, I think, to share today. I've been a student of the Ascended Masters for, I guess, 54 years now. And it all started really in high school. I was a very devout Christian and loved Jesus, but I thought there's got to be more than this. Something just didn't fit with me. There was so many questions I had. Why was I born in where I was, and why wasn't I born in India? Things like that. My father was a spiritual seeker too, and in high school he said, "I got a book I think you should read," and it was "There Is a River" about Edgar Cayce. And this was my first introduction to reincarnation. And I thought, whoa, this makes so much sense. It explains things. It explains why some are rich, some are poor, some are sick, some are well, where they are, what their karma or their dharma will dictate. And so I was excited about that. And so I started to attend, I grew up in Southern California. I started to attend different churches that were, I guess, fringe churches, if you will, New Age, so forth, looking for the truth. And many of them did believe in reincarnation, or several did at least, but there just wasn't something that clicked. Well, I got to the end of high school and I was going off to college at the University of Oregon, and I was all making my plans and so forth. And my friend called me up one day, an old friend from junior high. He said, I'm going to the University of Colorado. Why don't you come and we can be roommates? And I thought, oh, that's nice. So I changed my whole plans and ended up going to Colorado, which was a very faithful decision for me. So again, even at college, I tried to pursue the spiritual path, and I found that it was difficult to put together the college life and the spiritual path because not many people were interested. In fact, a friend of mine, I was telling one day all about reincarnation and so forth, and I saw this look on his face, and I thought, he's not interested. So I knew not everybody was, but I wanted to find my family, my mandala, my group that I was a part of. And so throughout college, I worked on this. And one day, my roommate at the time wanted to go to the library, college library, and pick up a book on spirituality. It turns out this was not a particularly good book. But anyway, while he was looking, I looked at the books too. And a book seemed like it jumped off the shelf to me. And it was called the I Am Discourses. And something clicked within my brain that I didn't know what it was. I didn't know what it meant even. So I checked the book out and took it home and started to read it. And I didn't really understand it so much, but I knew something was significant. And I can remember taking it one day to class. It was in my backpack. And after the class was over, it was a beautiful spring day. I went out and sat on the lawn. And I got the book out and put it on the lawn. And I thought, there's something here, but I don't know what it is. I even took a picture of it. So lo and behold, I went back to the library and found two more books from these. They're from the I Am Discourses about Saint Germain and Godfrey, who founded that movement. It told all about the Ascended Masters, all about the path of the Ascension, all about the violet flame, all about the teachings that the Masters have brought. I thought, wow, I have found the truth. I was excited. So I went to a bookstore in Denver not too long after that, and they had all the books from what was that time, the Summit Lighthouse, which he told me was very similar to the I Am Presence teachings. He said, by the way, there's a conference this weekend in Colorado Springs. Why don't you go? So my friend and I went down there, and I had the chance to meet Mark and Elizabeth Prophet. And, when I found these teachings, first thing, I knew them to be true. But what really excited me is I didn't realize it before, but I was on the search for the path of holiness. And I never really found holiness wherever I went. But when I got to the Summit Lighthouse and found the teachings of the Ascended Masters, I found holiness. And my soul really rejoiced, because that's a hard quality to find these days. So I recognized the path. I understood that we had a purpose, which was the path of the Ascension. We were to follow in the footsteps of Jesus. We were to take some of the same initiations or tests that he had, even though they might be as physical as he had. But this was all part of balancing our karma and become one with our holy Christ self in the Christ consciousness. This is a revolutionary idea that we too can follow in the footsteps of Jesus. And I knew at that point that this was my path. And I said to myself, I don't know if I'm going to make my ascension in this life, but I'm going to promise myself that if I don't make it, it won't be because I didn't try. And that was 50 plus years ago. And the path has been strenuous. It's been glorious. It's been different than anything I expected. but it has brought me closer to God. And I think one of the purposes, in fact, the purpose of life is to find God. And this path and these tools that the Ascended Masters present have allowed me to do that. They've allowed me to go forward and redeem some of the karma or the mistakes I've made in this other lifetime. It's allowed me to take on a greater quantity of light. It's allowed me to seek the Holy Spirit. It's allowed me to seek to be one with my Holy Christ self. It is a path that can be walked. And it's the highest path, I believe, on this planet, because the path of personal Christhood is the most important thing happening on planet Earth right now. Far more important than the political affairs, the economic affairs, the social affairs. It's that path of personal Christhood. And many more people would walk it if they understood and knew about it. And I think that's why those of us that have been gracious enough or grateful enough to find this path want to share it, because it really is liberating for the soul and for the consciousness and for all that we are. It's a joy to pursue this path. It takes work like anything else that has value, but it's the greatest goal that we all can have. And I encourage you to start someplace. God will meet you, and the Ascended Masters will meet you wherever you are on the spiritual path, and they'll work with you. It's, El Morya has said, the trek upward is worth the inconvenience. And I love that statement because it really is worth everything we give to it and our goal of the ascension.
Thank you. I do have some questions. You mentioned, I guess I'll start with the path to the ascension and the path to personal Christhood. I'm sure there are people that don't know what that is.
Okay. The ascension is our goal in life. And what it is, it's reuniting with God, who we came from originally. And we went our way because of our free will and went in the wrong direction, sort of compared to the Garden of Eve story, so to speak. And so we had karma, and we made karma. And so our goal is to balance that karma and fulfill the purposes of God. Now, God gave us a Holy Christ self, much as he gave Jesus a Holy Christ self. People like to idolatrize Jesus because they think he's the exception rather than the rule. And in fact, he is the rule. And this is unfortunately what's happened to modern Christendom, that we can follow him. And this path involves, we have a Holy Christ self, which is a part of our higher self, our I am presence. And we can become one with that Holy Christ self. And our goal end is to become with the I am presence. And that's through the process of the ascension. Even as Jesus ascended, we are intent to ascend.
So it sounds like there are different parts of being. There's our self. You mentioned a Holy Christ self, and you mentioned an I am presence. I just want to throw it out there for the public. There is a term that Jesus said, he that believeth in me, the works that I do, shall he do also, and greater works. And so that's proving your point that we can follow and become. Um, is there, can you, maybe you can talk also more about tests of Jesus to balance karma. What are the tests?
Well, karma, of course, has become very common in the modern talking. I mean, my daughter, who's a college student, she talks about karma. And so karma is simply the effects of things we've done. They can be positive and negative. And all the positive things we've done have really been gathered, if you will, our treasure stored up in heaven. And the negative things are a weight and a burden upon us. And we can balance that karma through things we do, but we can also balance it with the violet flame, which is a sacred fire energy that God has given us, which will transmute karma. And this, of course, is an unbelievable godsend, simply because, for example, in India, they believe in reincarnation, but they believe that it's going to take them potentially tens of thousands of years to balance that karma because it's very slow. And so what's the rush? Whereas we have been given this dispensation of the violet flame, which is this tremendous spiritual energy that literally will repolarize negative energy or negative karma. And so this allows us to have a great accelerated path. To make our ascension, we only have to balance 51% of our karma. And there's other requirements, but that's the basic one. And so with the use of the violet flame, the use of what we call decrees or the spoken word, we can achieve progress in one lifetime that's almost incomprehensible if we had to do it a tit for tat every single thing. So that is the part of the gift of the path at the end of the Piscean age, before we go into Aquarius, it's an open door for us to balance that karma and walk through that door if we will take advantage of it. And that's the key. We have to recognize its value, recognize the opportunity, and use it. Just knowledge of it is not enough. And so that's why the path of the ascension is an active path. We work, we do sacred labor, we do whatever we need to do to balance our karma and to serve others. At the same time, we use the violet flame to accelerate that balancing of karma. I mean, how many more times do you want to embody on planet Earth and go through the same thing over and over and over again? And who knows what's coming on this planet anyway? So this is the open door right now that we've been given. And no matter how old you are, no matter where you are on the spiritual path, the top, the bottom, the middle, we all start someplace. The ascended masters will meet you there. And as you engage yourself and you take those steps that will help that light be drawn down, you will find something different in your lives. And that difference will be working with the masters as you pursue that path.
That was my next question. You mentioned Saint Germain and the Ascended Masters. You mentioned Almoria. Who are they?
The ascended masters are the saints of East and West. They've walked on this planet and they've ascended. Now, the Catholic Church, as you know, has many saints. And so these are essentially the saints, but they become saints through the oneness with their Holy Christ self and their ascension. And Saint Germain is called the Holy Brother. That's what his name means. He was embodied as Saint Joseph and a number of other different embodiments. And he is, if you will, the leader for the Aquarian age. Jesus was for the Piscean age, and Saint Germain is for the Aquarian age. So he's there. He's, they have offices in heaven just like they have on earth. Excuse me. And I lost the other part of your question. What was it?
Well, I was asking who is Saint Germain and the Ascended Masters. I know you mentioned Almoria.
Almoria is another master. He was embodied as Thomas Becket and Thomas More. He was one of the three wise men. And he's the sponsor of our organization originally in 1958, excuse me, when it was founded. And so he is very much involved and was involved with Mark and Elizabeth Clare Prophet, who were the messengers of the Great White Brotherhood. They gave the teachings of the Great White Brotherhood and what we call dictations, where they spoke directly the words of the masters.
I think who are Mark and Elizabeth Clare Prophet? You mentioned them.
Yeah, I just mentioned they were chosen in this age. And by the way, that's Mark Prophet's real name. It's not a title. He had his family name was Prophet, which is kind of ironic in a way. But they were chosen by the Ascended Masters based on their past attainment to be the instruments of the release of these teachings. And the group was formed in 1958 under Mark Prophet, and Mrs. Prophet joined them later. So they are the ones that have been the conduit for these teachings and have brought them forth. And so they've created a tremendous body of work and body of teaching that we use to study now. Both of them have passed on and made their ascension. So that's how we continue and grow in the teachings without them physically here.
How can someone might want to find these teachings? If they're interested, how do they do that?
Well, you can go to Summit Lighthouse website. I think it's tsl.org. And there's plenty of opportunities there to see what the offering is, where do you start, what you do. And there's lots of free information there. So, give it a try. See if it resounds with you. At least it resounded with me. And, give it a chance. Just as when we give other things a chance. I think that's key, is give the masters a chance to work with you and to show you if this, in fact, is your path.
I appreciate all of this. One last question. Is there anything else you'd like the audience to know?
The spiritual path is the most exciting path there is on this planet. We have many things going on in science and business and economics and discovery and so on and so forth. But there is nothing on this planet that offers more than the path of your ascension, because it is your divine plan to do this. The opportunity is there. And to work with the Ascended Masters is unlike anything else. To feel their presence, their guidance, their direction. It's hard work. Anything that is worth achieving is hard work, but it's really almost a master's plan, if you will, master's program to get you where you want to go. Everything else falls by the wayside. The Hindus have a term called Maya, and means illusion. Like everything in this world, to a certain extent, is illusion. It's not really the ultimate reality. The path of the ascension is the ultimate reality.